Number 10. Satanic Rock Band. The heavy metal group The Beasts of Satan from Busto Arsizio were charged with at least 3 murders said to have been part of a satanic ritual performed by the band. In 1998, after a night of partying, sex, and drugs, came the chilling end to the evening. The band was with a small group of people enjoying each other's company when the events took a deadly turn. 19-year-old Chiara Marino was the band's first victim. They stabbed her to death as her 16-year-old boyfriend, Fabio Tolis, was forced to watch. After the men were done taking turns stabbing the girl, they beat Tolis to death with a hammer while he attempted to save his girlfriend's life. According to one account, once they were dead, one of the bandmates ritualistically shoved chestnut leaves down their victims' throats, dipped a cigarette in their blood, and smoked it, shouting, "Now you're both zombies. Try and get out of this hole if you dare." Then the band threw their bodies into a pit where they were left for 6 years while Italian investigators chalked their disappearance up to 2 young lovers running away together. Then in 2004, Mariangela Pizzotti was shot. She was the girlfriend of the band's lead singer, Andrea Volpe. It's still believed that she was alive when she was buried. Conspirators claim she was shot because she knew too many of the band's dark secrets. When Volpe was questioned by police, he broke down and told them everything. Hoping to get a lesser sentence, he told them where Mariano and Tolis were buried. Volpe eventually was sentenced to 30 years in prison, and bandmate Pietro Guerreri was also sentenced to 16 years behind bars. Others were given between 24 and 26-year sentences. While only 3 murders were solved, investigators believe there could have been as many as 18 victims in total based on other suspicious cases and the mysterious deaths of 6 former bandmates. Number 9. Dark Obsession. In late November 2021, aspiring rock star 24-year-old Cody Ackland, an indie guitarist from the band known as Rakuda, brutally killed 18-year-old Bobby Ann McLeod. The musician kept his dark obsession with violence a secret from everyone in his life, and his vicious crime shocked his fans and police. The crime took place in Lyme, Massachusetts. Ackland recounted feeling particularly unhappy that day. He was out taking a drive to clear his head when he spotted young teen Bobby Ann waiting at a bus stop. She had planned to take a bus to visit her boyfriend in Plymouth, but she was reported missing when she never made it to her destination. Ackland reportedly snatched her off the street and forced the girl into the back of his car. He then repeatedly beat her with a blunt object, fatally wounding her. After she was dead, he dumped her body in a wooded area near the local beach. 3 days after the crime, Ackland turned himself into the police, pleading guilty to the killing of the teen girl. The crime, according to Ackland, was not premeditated. However, he did say that the girl reminded him of an ex-girlfriend. News of the murder devastated Bobby Ann's family and friends who were in the courthouse when Ackland was sentenced to life in prison. Number 8. You've Lost That Lovin' Feelin'. Phil Spector, well-known musician and record producer, had a long history of abusing his romantic partners. However, he'd never gone so far as to actually kill one of them until 2003. Spector was most known for his chart-topping songs You've Lost That Lovin' Feeling for the Righteous Brothers and My Sweet Lord for George Harrison. He was a heavy drinker, which fueled his writing, but things would often go too far when he was in that state. Lana Clarkson, 40-year-old actress, was found dead at Spector's California mansion in February 2003 with a gunshot wound through the mouth. The two had supposedly spent the night drinking together when around 5 a.m. the woman tried to leave the mansion. This act led the writer to go into a blind rage, ultimately shooting the woman in the face, which left her teeth scattered around the floor. When questioned by police, Spector claimed that Lana had done it to herself. However, they saw right through his lies. The first trial for murder was in 2007, and it led to a mistrial when the jury could not agree on a verdict after 15 days of deliberation. Then, in 2009, he was found guilty of second-degree murder by the jury in his retrial and was sentenced to serve 19 years to life in prison for ending Lana Clarkson's life. Number 7. Drummer Killed by His Own Son. On March 4, 2019, Mike Walker, drummer for the band Aranda, was murdered in his home along with his wife Rachel Walker. Who was the killer? None other than their own son, Michael Elijah Walker. Michael was just 19 years old when he murdered his parents. The couple's younger son, 17-year-old Isaiah Walker, dialed 911 when he heard the gunshots go off in their family home around 2 a.m. Isaiah told a dispatcher that his brother said he'd killed his parents, quote, because they were sending him messages telepathically and they were Satan worshippers. End quote. Michael had apparently gotten into an altercation with his parents in his bedroom, where his pistol lay on the bed next to him. He said his father had told him to give him the gun as he grabbed Michael in an attempt to stop him. When officers arrived at the scene, Michael cooperated with them and came outside unarmed. He followed every command he was given and taken into custody. While being questioned about the murder, he told investigators he would, quote, react the same way if he had to do it over again, end quote. Autopsy reports found that Mike Walker was shot 7 times, while Rachel Walker was shot 10 times. The killer was originally labeled as unfit to stand trial, but that decision was later reversed. Michael's trial is now set for December 5th, 2022, where, hopefully, justice will be served for the 2 victims. Number 6. R&B Rage. In early December 2020, rising star Anne-Marie was arrested for shooting a man in the head for no apparent reason. The R&B singer was on the road to fame. She released 3 mixtapes in 2017 and signed to Interscope Records in 2019. Anne-Marie had a history of violence and was arrested a month before this incident for another charge of battery unrelated to this case. A police report was made on December 1st from the Intercontinental Buckhead Hotel in Atlanta, where gunshots were heard by hotel guests and staff. When the police arrived, they found the victim lying on the floor, barely responsive. The victim had been shot in the head and he was slipping in and out of consciousness, but was still able to answer all the questions from police. Anne-Marie was outside of the hotel room in a manic state. The reporter said, quote, the witnesses appeared to be upset, but there were no visible tears coming from her eyes. The witness also was in a white bathrobe with no other clothing underneath, end quote. When the singer was questioned, she claimed that the gun had fallen off the hotel table and went off when it hit the floor. She said the victim and her grew up together and were close friends. The police ended up holding the artist at the Fulton County Jail, but was released later that month on bail. She is now required to wear an ankle monitor and remains on house arrest for the crime. Anne-Marie is also not allowed to have contact with the victim or his family. Do you believe it was an accident? Tell us in the comments and hit that subscribe button while you're at it. Number 5. Country singer murdered. In 2019, 5 youngsters in Nashville were charged for the murder of 24-year-old country singer Kyle Yorlitz, the lead singer in the band Carverton. Renea McKnight, Diamond Lewis, Decorius Wright, and 2 others involved in the case who were 12 and 13 years old and have not been identified due to their age were charged in the killing of Yorlitz. The police stated that the young teen stole a pickup truck that had been parked in the alley behind the singer's home. Allegedly, the suspects approached Yorlitz and demanded he give them money and keys to his car. The singer handed over his wallet but refused to hand over his keys to the young delinquents. This decision seemed to anger the teens, which then caused one of them to shoot Yorlitz. The shooter has not yet been identified. The country singer was barely able to drag himself back into his house where his roommate discovered him. The gunshot proved to be fatal and Yorlitz succumbed to his injuries. The police discovered the suspects in a stolen car in a Walmart parking lot. They had been tipped off after the 12-year-old's family had reported her missing, and videos surfaced on the girl's Snapchat of her riding in a car with the other kids who had guns. Lewis was sentenced to 25 years in prison, and Wright was sentenced to serve 26 years. Both teens were charged as adults for the murder and the robbery. It's unknown what happened to the others in the group. Number 4. Christina Grimmie. Christina Grimmie was only 22 years old when her life and promising career as a musician was cut short. On June 10, 2016, while signing autographs for roughly 60 young fans at an event in Orlando, Florida, a man with a gun approached her. The shooter, identified as Kevin James Loibel, attended the meet and greet Grimmie had held for fans after a concert she performed with the band Before You Exit. He reportedly had an unrealistic infatuation with the young singer, and he showed up that day with 2 handguns and a hunting knife. Loibel fired 4 shots at Grimmie, shooting 2 others in the process. The shooter was tackled to the ground by Grimmie's brother, but Kevin shot himself dead in the scuffle. Grimmie was rushed to the ER, however, she passed away shortly after her arrival. She still lives on in the hearts of all of those who knew her and those who were fans of her music. The singer, who had come in 3rd place during the 2014 season of The Voice, was on the rise to stardom before tragedy happened. Grimmie had accumulated fans not only from her appearance on the popular singing show, but from her YouTube channel as well, where she regularly posted before her steady climb to fame. Number 3. Cookin' Too Many Pies. 30-year-old William William Jr. Maxwell II, famously known as Fetty Wap, was about to perform a show at Citi Field in Queens last October when he was dragged off the stage by FBI agents. The feds are accusing the 31-year-old of being a kilo-level dealer in a massive bi-coastal opioid drug ring based out of Long Island. The Trap Queen artist, who actually brags in his 2014 hit song about cooking pies in the kitchen, slang for making crack, along with 5 others, including a New Jersey corrections officer, supposedly trafficked and sold over 100 kilos or just under 225 pounds of controlled substances, including fentanyl, crack, heroin, and more. The drugs were reportedly obtained from the West Coast and brought all the way over to New York and New Jersey, where they had been sold between mid-2019 and June 2020. Search warrants turned up $1.5 million in cash, multiple kilos of drugs, as well as guns and ammo. The rapper posted a $500,000 bond and was released with an ankle monitor 9 days after the initial arrest. He also had to submit to regular drug testing and give up his passport. Fetty and his accomplices could face life in prison if convicted, but that probably won't happen. Earlier this year, the U.S. Attorney's Office acknowledged plea discussions are in the works for the young musician. Number 2, Strawberry Fields Forever. Former member of the Beatles, John Lennon, was tragically shot and killed by an obsessed fan in New York City. Lennon was an integral member of the group, writing such hits as I Am the Walrus, Strawberry Fields Forever, and Come Together. The band sold millions of records in their time and are still universally loved today as one of the most famous groups of all time. Their music was way ahead of the curve and influenced society, culture, and art due to the band's experimentation with different sounds. The untimely death of the singer shocked the world. The killer was 25-year-old Mark David Chapman. It's said that the fan actually received an autograph from the musician earlier that day on December 8, 1980. Later in the evening, Lennon, who was just 40 years old at the time, was shot on the steps of his own home. The born-again Christian man's motivation came after Lennon's claims of the Beatles being, quote, more popular than Jesus. Chapman was labeled a, quote, borderline psychotic by psychiatrists and was told to plead insanity by his lawyers. The killer instead pleaded guilty to the crime and was sentenced to 20 years to life in prison. John Lennon was laid to rest in Strawberry Fields, a section of Central Park in New York City named in tribute to the legend. Number 1, Mysterious Disappearance. Welsh rock band the Manic Street Preachers, better known as the Manics, were just figuring out their sound when they first emerged from the city of Blackwood. The band quickly found their genre in 90s alternative rock and grew a fan base after they began to mock the London music press. The Manics claimed they had an affinity for groups like Guns N' Roses and Motley Crue, which lit a fire in some people, only making the band more and more well-known. Lead guitarist and lyricist Richie Edwards was said to be the heart and bruised soul of the group. The haunting lyrics that he used in his songs would evoke emotion, and they resonated with their audience in a way that could be hard to imitate. On February 1st, 1995, Edwards was seen checking out of his London hotel and making his way to Wales. He then crossed the Severn Bridge that connects London and Wales, but then, after that, he was never seen again. The sudden disappearance left bandmates and their audiences in disbelief. However, it was well known that Edwards struggled with a lot of mental health issues and drank often. Sometimes he would even carve words into his skin. The guitarist was presumed to have ended his own life, however, his body has never been recovered. Edwards was just 27 years old when he went missing and was eventually declared legally dead in 2008, 13 years after he went missing. Thanks for watching. What is your favorite Beatles song? Let us know in the comments below and don't forget to subscribe. See you next time on The Bad Badger.